Murder Between Neighbors. Right Club Mysteries. Written by Michelle Corbier. Narrated by Artemis Arthur. Chapter 11. Lights from front porches and Christmas decorations illuminated the cul-de-sac. The garage door rose. Maisha immediately recognized a beat-up Toyota on the right side of the garage. Elated, she flew into the house, barely avoiding a collision with Boomer. Ignoring the people seated in the kitchen nook, she rushed down the hallway and toward the secondary bedrooms. "Josiah?" she asked, opening his bedroom door. He groggily rose from a rumpled bed. "Hey, Mom." Maisha sat on the side of the bed, wrapped him in a bear hug, and kissed his cheeks. Tears tottered along her eyelids. "What time did you get home? Why didn't you call?" she asked, not giving him a moment to answer. "Are you hungry?" Laughing, he said, "I wanted to surprise you, and I ate earlier." Arm in arm, they entered the living room. "Are we going to play spades or not?" Barry asked, shuffling the cards. Denise smacked her husband's hand. "Be patient. Josiah's only been home from college for a few hours. He goes to school in Chapel Hill, not California." He dealt 4 hands of spades. "Maya can see him any time." "But I don't get to see him," Maisha said, "because I work hard at not being an overbearing helicopter parent." She escorted Josiah up to AJ. "Have you two met?" Rising from the table, AJ kissed her cheek. "Yes, Denise introduced us." He held out a chair for Maisha, but she declined. "Let me prepare us a quick dinner," she said, pulling items from the refrigerator. "Mom, I already ate. Aunt Dee brought me a plate of food." Frowning, Maisha asked her best friend, "You knew he planned to come home and didn't tell me?" "I didn't want to ruin the surprise." Denise grabbed Maisha's hand, pulling her toward the table. "Come play before Barry has a fit." "We usually play on Fridays," he huffed. "Don't see why our game has to be rescheduled to Saturday because the fool next door died." Denise retrieved her cards. "The neighborhood is better off without him." "Who died?" Josiah asked, resting on the edge of a bar stool. "Mr. Lowry," Maisha said, returning food to the refrigerator. "Let's go," Barry said, thumping the table with his palm. "What's your hurry?" his wife asked, the corner of her lip curling. "We always win anyways." Barry said, viewing his cards. "AJ and I kicked y'all's butts last month." "Once in a blue moon," his wife said, placing a bid. "How did he die?" Josiah asked, helping Maisha return food to the refrigerator. "Poison," she said, grabbing a soda before sitting down at the table. "Probably alcohol poisoning," Josiah said. "He drank a lot." Glancing up at him, Maisha asked, "What do you know about his drinking?" "Come on, Mom, I'm not a child. Anyone could recognize the signs of an alcoholic. It was common knowledge around the neighborhood." After a quick glance at her cards, Maisha said, "I've got nothing. Josiah, you want to play?" "Before you and Maya started dating," Barry said, addressing AJ. "Josiah and I were partners." "And you don't play any better with AJ," Denise said, making a comedic face at her husband. "No, I'm good," Josiah said. "I've got calls to make." He left the kitchen and headed for his bedroom. "Oh, before you go," AJ said, discarding an ace of hearts and rising. "I wanted to invite you to Christmas dinner at my house. Every year my family has a huge party with games and food. I'd like you and your mom to come." "Thanks. Let me think about it," Josiah said, before departing. "Sure thing." Smiling, AJ resumed his seat and picked up his cards. "Nice young man." Maisha beamed. "Yes, but he looks thin. I wonder if he's been eating enough." Denise chuckled before tossing down a card. "There's nothing wrong with him. He ate the entire plate of food I brought him." Campus cafeteria food can be atrocious, Maisha said, staring down the hall where her son had retreated. Stop worrying, Barry said, studying his hand. And play the game. I don't remember you being this intense, Maisha said, observing Barry. Ignore him, Denise said. He's in a bad mood because his office got flooded. Maisha asked, when? And at the same time, AJ asked, how? Barry threw down his cards as Denise tallied their scores. He clutched an empty glass of scotch. Silly fool in the office above me had this enormous fish tank. Damn thing's been leaking for the past week. He's taking his slow, sweet time getting it repaired. Destroyed a whole file cabinet of documents. He got up and walked over to the pantry. I need another drink. Maisha found the bottle, refilled his glass, and added 3 ice cubes. I understand. Same thing happened with my neighbor. 6 months passed, and he still hadn't fixed my fence. I secured the fence. Besides, he's dead, AJ said. I thought you'd get over it by now. Glaring at AJ, Maisha asked, would you get over it if he tried to have Zoe killed? The brown lab's ears perked up. She and Boomer both looked at AJ. That's not what I'm saying. Denise rose and joined Barry on the living room couch, facing the fireplace. She took a sip from his glass. I think he's saying Jared is dead and it's over. Doesn't mean it didn't matter. Maisha returned the bottle of scotch to the pantry. It's surprising the police aren't over here questioning you, Barry said, before swallowing his drink in one gulp. You had motive, and you write murder mysteries. He held out his glass as if requesting a refill. You're asking for a drink after calling me a murder suspect? Maisha, who had entered the living room, pivoted around and retrieved the bottle of scotch. I didn't say you should be suspected. Only I'm surprised the police didn't suspect you. He raised his glass again. Please? Fine. Barry accepted the bottle and poured a healthy portion into his empty glass. AJ? I'm good. AJ reclined on the couch, inviting Maisha to sit next to him by patting the couch cushion. Todd is investigating the case. He's partial to Maisha's sweets. Denise fluttered her eyelids and smiled suggestively. AJ grimaced. Don't be silly, Maisha said, sitting next to AJ. He hugged her close to his side and kissed her temple. A glance at his watch made him rise and say, It's getting late. Denise smacked Barry's arm. Come on, you drunk grouch. Time to tuck you into bed. Barry slurped the remaining scotch. Thanks for the drink, Maya. He followed Denise outside. Call you later, Denise said, giving Maisha a hug. AJ leashed Zoe and headed for the foyer. Everything okay? Maisha asked, following him and removing his coat from the foyer closet. Tired. He gave her a peck on the cheek. Starting a remodeling business isn't easy. Not with also working at the station. That was your bright idea. It'll pay off in time. He gave her a short peck on the lips. Speaking of time together, can I expect you and Josiah at my place on Christmas Day? She shrugged. I'll let you know. You said you and Josiah spend Christmas Eve together. What's wrong with joining me and my family on Christmas Day? I said I'd think about it, she said, retreating a step. He frowned and placed a hand on her shoulder. What's going on? He asked, lowering his voice. Nothing. I know we haven't had much time together with me starting this new business. He moved closer. Are you mad at me? Of course not. I'm glad you're following your dreams. He palmed her chin in his hand. Then what? Is it about the fence? I said it's fine. Don't do this. If I upset you, tell me. She paused a mere second before asking, Why are you blaming me about the fence? I'm not. Then why do you keep suggesting something is wrong with me? Because lately you're angry all the time. I can't tell if it's something I did or your neighbor. Oh, now I'm the angry black woman? She asked, resting her hands on her hips. A moment passed as they stared at each other. AJ gathered the leash and exited with Zoe. A foot outside the door, he spun around. "I can't fix this if you won't tell me what's wrong." Maisha watched him enter his double-wide truck and depart. She glanced right, toward Patsy and Jared's house, before returning to the living room. Once everyone left, Maisha cleaned up the kitchen. She considered speaking with Josiah about AJ's invitation, but figured it could wait until tomorrow. A glance around the house revealed no Boomer. He's probably with Josiah. With Boomer in Josiah's room, she had the master bedroom to herself. While braiding her hair, she considered Barry's comment. Did the police suspect her? Should they? On Friday, the day of the murder, Todd had come over to speak with Patsy. He hadn't interrogated Maisha, not like he had when Candace died, likely because, at the time, he hadn't known a murder had been committed. He must have received information from the coroner's office Friday evening or Saturday to change the case to a definite murder investigation. On Friday, would he have interrogated me if he had known a murder had been committed? Did our friendship influence his decision in considering me a homicide suspect? When her friend, Renee, had been suspected of killing her twin sister, Todd's attitude toward her remained professional. He hadn't allowed their rapport to interfere with his criminal investigation. Because of our relationship? Possibly. He obviously valued her opinions. Because Maisha considered Todd a platonic friend, she hadn't worried that they hadn't openly defined their situation. Did we have to? They had an innocent affection for each other. Though handsome, educated, and employed, Todd didn't romantically appeal to her. Why not? Because she loved AJ. If AJ and I weren't involved, would I be attracted to Todd? Too many questions for a late night. Maisha finished braiding her hair, clicked off the lights, and climbed into bed. She didn't want answers to certain questions. Not right then. Chapter 12. Icy rain splattered Todd's face. He pulled the coat's lapel tighter around his neck, frustrated at being called out on a stormy Sunday morning. 5 days until the concert, and he needed more practice time. A half-dozen police vehicles filled the delivery service company's visitor parking lot. Todd surveyed the area and spotted several surveillance cameras on the warehouse building. "What are you grinning about?" Ian said, sloshing over to him along the rain-soaked asphalt. "Cameras." Todd pointed up at the warehouse's corners. "They should come in handy." "Hope so." Ian turned his back to the wind. "You want to come see our victim now? We'd like to get out of the rain." Todd followed his partner around the side of the building to the employee parking lot. After observing the surrounding area, he carefully approached the body, observing where he stepped. The victim's upper torso lay inside a sedan, with his head resting on the driver's seat. A dried, foamy substance encircled his mouth. Vomit covered his lap and the car floor. The deceased arms stretched forward in a large V. His legs bent at the knees, onto the wet ground. Todd used a handkerchief to cover his mouth as he inspected the body and car's interior. 15 minutes elapsed before he retreated, allowing the forensics team to remove the corpse. He took a deep inhalation of the clean, wet air. "Identification?" he asked, headed for their department vehicle. Flipping through his notepad, Ian gave the man's name and address. Todd glanced around the parking lot once more. "Last seen Saturday. He completed his shift, hung around talking to the guys, left at 7 in the evening." He slid behind the steering wheel, waiting until Ian settled into the passenger seat to continue. "And no one noticed anything suspicious?" "Nope." Ian snapped the notebook closed and buckled up. "His wife called the boss when her husband hadn't returned home. When no one could help, she had a family member drive her out here." As he merged behind other vehicles to depart the lot, Todd asked, "She waited all night to check up on him?" Ian shrugged. Maybe she thought he had an overnight shift. Possible. Executing a left turn onto the main thoroughfare, Todd side-eyed Ian. Give me her address again. After providing the address, Ian said, Time to interview another widow. Chapter 13. Todd considered the murky tan fluid inside his mug. His thirst could wait, but his energy could not. At 5 on a Monday morning, apparently no one in the police department understood how to work the coffee machine but himself. He tromped down to the staff break room, mentally rehearsing his violin piece. While the coffee brewed, he set aside the violin and reflected on his 2 new homicide cases. The machine dinged, and Todd poured himself a cup of fresh coffee. He added creamer as the door flew open. There you are! Ian hurried inside, clutching a manila folder. Want some? We're gonna need it. Ian handed Todd the folder and searched for a clean cup. Taking a seat at one of a half-dozen tables, Todd scanned the documents. The medical examiner finished the autopsy on the delivery guy? Yep. Ian sat across from Todd. And read her conclusion. He frowned. Sounds like the same thing that happened to the guy in the cul-de-sac. That's what the ME thought, so she compared their tissue samples, or bodies, something like that. Todd continued reading. They found a bottle of water in the delivery guy's car and tested it for poison, Ian said, finishing the sentence. Wrinkles multiplied across Todd's brow. SMFA? Should I know what it stands for? Not unless you're killing coyotes or other predators on your property. Answering the quizzical expression on Todd's face, Ian said, Sodium fluoroacetate. The folder included a handout on the substance, which Todd quickly perused. Or sodium monofluoroacetate, SMFA, he said, under his breath. Pretty deadly from what the ME said. Ian slurped coffee. Is there anything to eat? He left the table in search of food, while Todd continued reading. What does this have to do with the guy in the cul-de-sac? Ian returned to the table, munching on a bagel. Because they found the same stuff in his body. As he digested the information, Todd stared at a far wall. I remember a beer bottle near Mr. Lowry's outstretched hand, but the lab technicians didn't find any poison in it. Nope, Ian said, chewing on a bagel and sipping coffee. Which means someone planted the beer bottle. Clever. Devious. Todd's fingers tapped along the table as if playing piano keys. Neither spoke as Ian ate and Todd read. According to this, SMFA has been banned in the U.S. since 1972. But, Ian said before wiping his mouth, farmers and ranchers use it to kill wolves and coyotes to protect their cattle. Interesting. Todd rose and poured his coffee down the sink and rinsed out the mug. Let's go. Where? Ian hustled to catch up with him. We need to find out which of our suspects had access to the poison. They hurried back to their desk and started making phone calls. 10 minutes later, Ian hung up his desk phone and started writing on a notepad. Now we know the murders are connected, we should create a suspect list. Go ahead, Todd said, still on hold for the medical examiner. A minute later, he hung up. I'll try later. You know, Ian said, seeming to pick his words carefully. If it's murder, we should question everyone in the cul-de-sac. Todd shrugged. Absolutely. Including the doctor. Who? It took a second before Todd realized Ian's implication. Dr. Douglas. She had motive. You can't believe. And means. And opportunity. Scrutinizing his partner internally, Todd paced himself. He credited Ian as a capable, astute detective who occasionally enjoyed antagonizing him. But his partner couldn't honestly suspect Michelle of murder. Could he? Okay, he said. What's her motive? Lowry tried to kill her dog. No, he didn't. The victim simply called animal control when the dog got outside the fence. And animal control would have put him down. They would have investigated. Mr. Lowry hadn't been bitten. Remember, during the autopsy, the medical examiner didn't locate any bruises or cuts. At most, she would have to pay a fine and have to keep him muzzled. But she didn't know that. Of course she did. Ian raised his brows. She's capable of committing a murder, but not this one, Todd said, eyeing his partner. So, we should interview her. We interview everybody connected with the homicide. They both returned to their prior activities. Minutes later, Ian said, I contacted vendors who sell SMFA. No one reported selling the substance to any of our suspects. At least not recently, that they can remember. It's 2007. People can buy anything online. True. Todd rose and holstered his weapon. Where? Ian said, rising and putting on his coat. The cul-de-sac. He departed with Ian at his side. Interview time. What about Dr. Douglas? Pressure from Ian's gaze warned Todd to tread carefully. He liked Maisha a lot. Have I allowed my emotions to interfere with the investigation? Though passionate, she didn't possess the character of a murderer. Yet, how many times had he heard other people repeat the same refrain? Ian had a point. He couldn't, shouldn't exclude anyone. Despite their acquaintance, he had to consider her a suspect. In truth, Maisha made a perfect suspect. Of all the residents in the cul-de-sac, murder had become her métier.